Awesome. Thank you all for joining on this lovely Thursday afternoon. One quick note as you join the call, we will not be having webinars tomorrow. Mainly my fault. I'll be out of the office due to spring break. Actually taking my family to Disney World, so it should be a lot of fun. But we will not have any webinars next week. We'll return the week after. I'll actually be in our Austin, Texas office the week after, working in person there with the team. And if you have any ideas for a webinar topic, please let me know. Feel free to put them in the chat and more than happy to take suggestions. So just let me know. Looks like we've got a great group of people today. Lots of people registered, which we love to see. Thank you all for joining. As a quick way of introduction, we're going to talk about intake forms today. So we'll be talking through how to set them up in Concord, what that process looks like. We did the same webinar, of course, yesterday. And immediately after the webinar, I had two of our customers reach out to want to get them set up. So hopefully whatever you see today and learn today, you can be able to apply to your workflows that you're using with Concord. Quick way of introduction on myself. So I am Zach Hinsey, the head of sales here at Concord. I'm based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. I've been with Concord for over 10 years now and worked with probably most of you that are on this call to help you purchase Concord or upgrade or whatever. So I've been here for quite some time. Definitely very happy with the direction that Concord is going. I think right now the product is with our Horizon platform probably the best it's ever been. I have also seen what we're about to release to make it even better, and it's a pretty exciting time at Concord for sure. So we're definitely ready for a big year of growth this year, and I think that'll happen. Now, one note about intake forms. Not everybody on this call may have a plan that includes intake forms. So anybody that signed up for Concord in the past, maybe couple years, year and a half, you most likely have them on your plan as long as your business or enterprise package. Anybody who is before that, you may or may not have them. If you did do an upgrade at some point, you may have them. So we'll talk quickly about where to find the intake forms, how to see them in the system, and then we'll go into the actual process. So right now I'm in Horizon. And one thing to mention is intake does work in both Classic and Horizon. So you don't have to be in Horizon to see them. But over here to the far left, you'll see this intake section. It's the same thing in Classic. So if you can see intake and click into it to actually like build out a form, then that means you have access to that feature. If you're clicking in and it's saying it's not included with your subscription, that's probably because you're not on a business or enterprise package. If you're interested in maybe upgrading, or getting the right package, you can always email me directly. I'll put my message here. Thank you, Pablo. Appreciate it. I'll put my email here real quick. Or I actually have two emails. I'm one of those people at Concord that's been here since the very beginning. So I have the old Concord Now email and I have the Concord.app. I have both. So both of them work just fine. They both come to me, but yeah, feel free to send them to either one. So let's go ahead and dive into intake forms. So what is the purpose of an intake form? Why do people use them? What are they all about? The idea behind an intake form is you have somebody in the business that needs to submit a request, and it's an easy automated way to do that. So here's a couple of the different form options that I have. I have a budget approval. I have contract questions intake. This is kind of like a general legal intake. I have one of my customers that they love to use this in the system. There's an MSA. Maybe they need an MSA created. Maybe they need an SOW created. They have a new vendor contract they need reviewed. They want a standard NDA, etc. So you can build a form for anything you want. I mean, it's pretty much unlimited and endless. But the idea is to automate kind of that ticketing system, that initial intake process to get that set of questions or that document that needs to be reviewed or kick off a document from a template inside of Concord. You can really start directly from the intake process. Now, I will mention I have some customers, one in particular I'm thinking of, they like to use the intake form outside of Concord. So they actually have like a Google form set up that they integrate with Zapier. And in their email signature, they have a link to the actual Google form. So anytime they send an email out to anybody in the business, they know they can just click on that link. That takes them to a public form, and then they fill that out, and that submits it directly into Concord. So you don't necessarily have to use the intake forms inside of Concord. You could also do that outside the system as well. but I'll be showing you how to do that in Concord. One other thing I'll mention, we have got feedback where people want to add the ability to just natively have a public form that can come into Concord. That is something that our product team is working on, and we probably will have some updates to intake forms a little bit later this year. So definitely something we want to improve. But let's talk about how to actually set this up and how to work with it. So the intake forms themselves, all you would do is click on new intake form. You do, of course, have to have permissions to do that. You need to be an admin or somebody with the right permission. And so you're going to be able to come in here and actually create the form. So give it a title. You're going to assign that to somebody. Right now, it is going to be a specific person. We don't have team assignment in here yet, so it is going to be a specific person. You'll put a description in, like when they should be using this form. You also have the documents, the templates linked to specific, sorry, the intake form can be linked to a specific template inside of Concord, which this one is. This one is linked to the standard vendor agreement. And these are a couple of the smart fields that I have in there, vendor address and vendor contact. And so these are questions you can capture through that form, which will then automatically flow into the document in Concord. So I've set up my form here. It's ready to go. Now, if I'm an end user, I have two places where I can submit an intake request. If I click on new, I can go new intake request here, or I can actually go into the intake section and click new intake request. Of course, this is in Horizon. It's similar in Classic as well. I'll be able to choose the form that I want to submit, and you can also choose who has access to the form. So maybe not everybody should see every form. Maybe they should just have forms for their specific department or team. There's different things you can set up there, but I'll go ahead and just choose this new vendor contract. I'm going to choose the date that this needs to be done by. Of course, everyone wants it done by tomorrow, right? So we'll go ahead and put tomorrow in. We'll go ahead and put MSA for Nike. Put a description of this in. You know, I need this for a new deal, whatever. They can also attach an actual contract file here. So maybe they have a third-party paper they want to submit with that form. So you can go ahead and just attach that. You can also put in the address here, the contact name, and then we're ready to get started. I cannot type. There we go. And now I'm ready to submit this into the system. So what'll happen is the person who is receiving that request is going to receive an email, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's just like this. And this is where you can see new intake request, MSA for Nike. This person submitted it. So if I'm the person receiving that, I just click open request, and that'll take me directly into this request right here. Now, if I have questions about this, I can come into the comment section. You know, maybe I need more info about the insurance cap or whatever. So you can come in here and just ask questions. And this is just like a normal discussion panel built right into this request. So the person that submitted it will get a notification that you have this question. They can then come in and respond, and you can communicate directly here. Once we're good to go with it, we're happy with this, we'll go ahead and click accept, and we'll turn this into a document inside of Concord. So I'm going to click create document. It knows that I have an attachment, so it's going to ask me if I want to attach it, which I do, and then I'm going to continue to the document. And there we go. So that created the document inside of Concord for me. It's also going to fill out the fields that I had in my template based on the fields that I had mapped. And then the other thing it does is it attaches that contract to as an attachment here in the system as well. So I have the template, I have the attachment. And one thing that I've seen a lot of people do here is instead of having like a template to get submitted to, especially if it's third-party paper, they'll basically have like a template of a bunch of questions. And so that way when the person fills out that, they're going to be mapped into the contract intake template. And then they'll attach that third-party paper. So that way they have all the answers to their questions about the contract. They have the contract itself, and then they can turn that into the actual record and link it back to this request in Concord. So that is one workflow that I've seen a few of our customers actually use. So from here, I'm now going to be able to work on the document just like normal in Concord. You know, I can come in, I can edit, I can share. This template could have had an approval workflow built into it. So if I want to have certain people need to come in and review the contract, that can all be done through that approval workflow. we can go through that negotiation process. We can talk to the discussion panel to get it, negotiated. We also have our built-in e-signature here. So once it's done, we can go ahead and sign it. One other thing to highlight, especially when it comes to intake and third-party paper, we just redid our Concord Copilot. We re-released it about maybe a month and a half ago. If you haven't tried the new Copilot, it is way better than the old one. So right here, I'm going to go review this and highlight risk, and it just gives much, much better responses. The other one was very truncated. It was pretty short. You kind of had to prompt it to give you more information, where this one is going to be a lot more thorough. So we have actually moved over to OpenAI. So this is like their commercial grade plan behind the scenes. It is being prompted specifically for contracts. But yeah, it's really great. It's a lot better than what we had before. So one thing that I like to show people that you can do is you can have it do a quick contract review. You can have it summarize the entire agreement for you. Like some of our customers like to get like an executive summary of the terms that then they can send out to their leadership team. So I'm going to go ahead and say write an executive summary of the terms of this agreement that I can send as an email, and it's going to do that for me. So it's just a really powerful tool. If you haven't used that new version of it, I definitely recommend doing that. So there's a lot you can do with it there. And there's your email ready to go. Um, I'll we have a lot of changes coming to this part of the system, but I'll save those probably for another day as we start releasing those. Another thing that I want to mention here is the link back into that intake form. So you have the document that was generated from the form, but if you ever want to go back into the actual form itself, you just come into the summary sheet. You can see this intake request. You'll click see details, and that'll actually take you back into the form inside the system. So you'll be able to see it, update it, whatever. That's pretty much it. So that's how it all looks, and that's the process to submit an intake request through the Concord platform. Now, one thing that's super important to note is that anybody who is a viewer seat in Concord, one of those read-only users, they can submit intake requests. So a viewer can actually submit intake requests, they can view documents you give them access to, and they can also receive deadline alerts. So anybody in your entire company or organization, even if they're a free viewer, they could submit an intake request through the platform. So we have a lot of customers who are using this. It's actually quite a popular feature to be able to just receive those different, intake processes, things like that. And some of them are not like general. Some of them are like, hey, I'm working with the legal team, and we need to do some like routing of all of these contracts as they're coming in, and so they'll use the intake to kind of route things and assign them out to different team members. And there's a lot of different ways you could use it, but that is, yeah, some of the different use cases there. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to quickly talk about. Great question, actually, and I may have misspoken by that. Did we release that yet? Let's see. Great question. The question is, how do you limit who has access to specific forms? We did not release it yet. So we do have we're going to be updating this where you can choose specifically. It's going to work kind of like the folder structure. It looks like we have not released it yet. So I'll try to get an update on when that's going to be coming out. I've seen the spec of it. That's why I had it in my mind. But as of right now, it looks like you either have access to the forms or you don't. However, I will say when it comes to the submission of the form, you're only going to be able to see the ones that you've submitted if you're an end user. So we'll talk about the permissions real quick as well. But the way it works right now is you will be able to see all the forms that are in the system. So I misspoke on that. I apologize. But you will only be able to see the forms that you've created here in the tool. So unless you're an admin, then of course you'll see everything. So let's jump into the permission settings real quick about intake specifically. And I'm just going to go into my roles, and under roles, of course, we have all of the different permission sets. So down here, we have intake requests. So there's two specific permissions when it comes to intake. You have submit and edit users' own intake requests. So if you want somebody to be able to submit an intake request, you're going to choose this. So you can determine that people should not be able to submit or change intake requests at all. Like maybe that's just not something that they should be doing. So you can turn off the ability for them to do that. The other one we have is really for the admins and the people kind of overseeing those requests. This allows you to create, edit all intake requests and create forms. So if you have this turned on, you're basically like an admin for the intake requests. You can see them all. When they come in, you can edit them, like make changes to them, and you can also create the forms as well. So I do see this getting more granular as we continue to deploy new features as far as the permissions go, but right now that's what's available. So yeah, thank you for calling out that question because it made me double check myself. So thank you. I sometimes I get things wrong. The other thing I want to talk about is when it comes to the outside of Concord requests. So this is something that I've actually built for a few of our customers at this point. This is where you would actually create that Google form external response, and you could do this through like a Word, form or whatever, or a Microsoft form, I should say. So the idea here is you'll have your Google Doc. In this case, it's a permission slip form. So it's just like a general form that lives in Google Forms. When somebody submits that, it's going to automatically create a document in Concord, and it's going to fill out the fields that are mapped into that document. So I have like the actual form in Concord. They submit that request. It's going to push that data into our system and create that document. If it had an approval workflow assigned to it, of course, that could be there as well. So just showing that like there's different ways to do intake. You don't have to do it inside of Concord. You could do it from an external source. And in this case, we're using Zapier to actually integrate that into Concord. So yeah, just know there's a few different options there. Other questions, let me know. So there's a question here. Can you attach multiple documents to an intake request? I'd like requests to assign to me by default, then potentially assigned to our attorney. Is that possible or on the horizon? Yeah, I believe that's all possible in the system. Unless they have recently changed something, then I'm going to be proven wrong, but let's just run through that real quick. I do believe that that is all possible. So we're going to go new intake request here. We're going to stick with that vendor contractor view because I know that it actually works. I'm going to attach this and this. We'll go like that. So we do have two attachments here. We're going to go like this. And then we'll submit that once we're good to go. What am I missing? Oh, title. Missing a title there. Great. And I'm going to click submit. So you can definitely attach multiple documents. That's not a problem. Once it's here, I can reassign it. So it'll get submitted to myself. When I come into the document, I will be able to come in and choose who that should get assigned to. So we'll say Henry. I'm going to, so now it's assigned to Henry, and Henry would have received an email letting him know that they have now been assigned to this intake request. So you can reassign it up until when you click accept. So as soon as you click accept, it does lock who it's assigned to. Honestly, I'm not really sure why, but that's what it does. I just know that you can't reassign it once it's been accepted. So, oh, you still can, or maybe it's once the document's created. There is a step where it doesn't allow you to. So let's see real quick here. Let's test it. Or maybe it's just I'm wrong. We'll see here. Great question. Let's go back to the intake form. Yeah, so once the document is created, you can't reassign it. That's when it is. Yep. Question here, when will we be able to assign it to a team instead of an individual? I know that they're working on it. I think it's probably already done. I don't have a release date yet. I'll check with the team. I would expect it. We have a bunch of things coming out in April. I would expect it's probably something we release in April, but I can get more specific and find out, Michelle. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Great. Other questions, let me know. This has been awesome. I learned something myself about about when you can actually reassign. I never tested that before, so thank you. It's always good to learn. So yeah, just know once a doc is created, for whatever reason, the team decided that that's when you can no longer lock it. I'm sure it's tied to the database or something. That's usually what it is. So, yep. Great. I don't have a lot of other information today. I mean, I just wanted to really cover the intake form process. If you'd like to set up intake forms, I'm happy to help you with that. You could also reach out to our support team, and they'd be happy to help, have one of the CSMs help as well. So just let us know. This is available in the platform. This is another question. How does the forms part work? Is it like Google Forms that I can create any type of question? So that's one thing that I should clarify. Thank you for that, because that came up on our call yesterday too. So the questions that are here currently are only available as a question that you tie to a contract. So what I mean by that, like, is if I come in here and create a new intake form, you'll notice that I don't have the ability to ask questions down here. It's not like I can come in and create a form that just has questions on it and I can ask those questions. The way that they've set this up as of right now is it does have to be tied to a template. So if I were to come in here and choose the template, then based on the fields in that template, I have my questions. So these are specific smart fields in a template. So once you link the template, then you'll have your questions that are listed there. If you don't have a template linked, there are no questions. It's not like just an open Q&A field. So yeah, that's a great clarification, because that came up yesterday. Someone went in and tried to set it up and they're like, why can't I put any questions in? And that's the reason why. So I do know that that will change as well. I don't know exactly when. We're going to be reworking a lot of the intake form to make it a little bit easier to use and more configurable, but this is how it works today. So yeah. Another question, do you foresee the ability to have additional questions that are not tied? Yeah, so that is the idea. I definitely foresee that. That has been my request. That's also been a request from a lot of our customers. So I do think that that will be coming out here, hopefully sooner than later, but I think within the next 1 to 2 months, we'll have that for sure. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff they're working on. So I'm just kind of waiting for our April releases to start happening. So yep, lots of new stuff coming out. And of course, we'll update you on these webinars. So happy to update you on everything. Awesome. Great questions. Thank you all for the questions. There's another one here. Will you be able to send intake forms to potential clients to fill out? So the way that the intake forms are set up in Concord today, that's not possible, because someone would have to be an internal user to submit them. When we create our kind of anybody can access it intake form, which we do plan to create, in the next few months, then that will allow somebody to come in. Anybody could come in and fill that out. It's just like a general form. Or if you want to do that today, you could use the Google form like I talked about, or the Microsoft form, and then have that data flow into Concord through like a Zapier. So there are workarounds for it, but eventually we do plan to have that just be something you could do within Concord. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you for the questions. If there's other questions, let me know. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything down here. I think we're good. This will be sent out to everybody tomorrow as always. So if you want to come in and recap it, let me know. If you want to go in and test it out in your system, feel free to do that. And if you have questions later, I'm happy to help. So thank you all for your time today. Hopefully you have a great rest of the week. And otherwise, yeah, reach out and we're here for you whenever you need us. Have a great rest of the day.